Okay, let's move on to agenda item 8, Standards and Assessment Committee Report. Chair Earl.
Yes, thank you. We have a number of items. The first, let's see, whoops, I clicked on the wrong one, that will be on our second agenda that are from our June 24th meeting. So item number 3, 4, and I think one at the bottom, 14 were postponed. So we will be starting with item number 5, which is the Dropout Prevention and Recovery Program. And let me read what we've got there. So the motion before the board is that the board approve R277606 Dropout Prevention and Recovery Program Draft 2 on second and final reading.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then is that the board approve R277-606 Dropout Prevention and Recovery Program Draft 2 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes unanimously with member Reel absent. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Yes, so next item is R277616 Education for Homeless and Emancipated Students. It's an amendment and continuation. So.
Do you want me to state it? You didn't state the motion, sorry.
Oh, I didn't? Sorry. Oh, sorry, draft 1 on second and final reading. My apologies, I did read the action item instead of the motion, so sorry about that.
Okay, so the motion that's coming from committee is that the board approve and continue R277-616 Education for Homeless and Emancipated Students, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Question for the maker of the motion. Is homeless defined in the rule? And if so, could we see it on the board?
Homeless child is defined in the rule, and so it's number 4, line 33. I don't know who's driving.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Member Lear.
I'm just going to be a question for staff. The funding that supports this is federal funding, McKinney-Vento money. Is it still in place?
Have we heard anything if
That's just a
McKinney-Vento
yes
is
or
still
no.
happening? It is still happening.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, so the motion before the board then is that the board approve and continue R277-616 Education for Homeless and Emancipated Students, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Let's vote. That passes unanimously with member Reel absent, member Earl, or Chair Earl.
The motion before the board is that the board approve R277623 School Climate Survey, Draft 2 on second and final reading. And I do have an amendment. Let me pull it up real quick here.
Let me restate the motion as you prepare your amendment. The motion before the board then is that the board approve R277-623 School Climate Survey, Draft 2 on second and final reading. And then over to you, Chair Earl.
Sorry, it's making me reboot here. Yeah, we left, there was a question when we left our committee related to one of the sections. I don't have the line on this, so maybe, is Jennifer in here? What line number is it? Oh, it's up there? Oh, it's, okay. Sorry, I gotta get my glasses. Okay. So the proposed amendment would be, an LEA may not modify, do we need to strike or remove? Sorry, let me, include or remove additional questions in the LEA's climate survey consistent with student data privacy requirements as described in section 53E 9203 for, and then 2 is for student survey groups.
So overall, you would like to add
Yeah.
or remove,
Additional questions
and then
for student survey groups.
separate. So the double I
Yeah.
is, you wanna separate that out a little bit and add for student survey groups.
So it's clear where you can add or remove. That's where you can include or remove.
So the motion then, you can see what's being added in blue, and it would, in its totality, it would read, an LEA may, not modify an existing survey questions, any existing survey questions, and double I, include or remove additional questions in the LEA's climate survey, 1, consistent with student data privacy requirements as described in section 53E-9-203, and 2, for student survey groups. Do we have a second? We have a second. Member, or Chair Earl, speak to your motion.
Yeah, so, yeah, let me speak to my motion. Just the question came up around removing questions or adding questions and allowing local LEAs to make those decisions if they choose that. So that's just kind of where this is going, is allowing that to take place.
Okay, Member Brinton?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to remember from committee, but weren't we told that we didn't want to allow that because then the data would be messed up if anything was removed or additional questions were added? And so I thought the intention was to maybe say that you may not remove or include additional questions, or else just not being able to modify was sufficient. Was that not right?
I think
Chair Earl.
I'll respond to that, and if I'm inaccurate, someone correct me. There was the question left at the end of the committee, and that's why the amendment here was, you can't really modify the question because then it would create an inaccuracy, but removing a question or adding a question to it, that was what was left there, and staff indicated that that would be appropriate, and so that's why I'm making that change here.
So you can,
can't.
from what I'm hearing from Joanne, you can modify the survey,
Yep,
but not the questions.
because then you wouldn't have the accuracy of the
Right.
same information being collected.
Okay. Member Brinton, follow up?
What does it do to the survey group if they, how does it change it if questions are removed or added? Like, is that, I'm just seeking clarification.
Yeah, that might be good.
So this is just, Deputy Superintendent of Policy Elise Nui. In this case, we have two different surveys. There's adult-centered surveys and then the student. So this is just for the student surveys that we're clarifying that they can add and subtract questions.
Member Lear?
Then now I have two questions. So that does suggest, as Member Brinton said initially, that you will get screwy, for lack of a better word. Your data won't be consistent because 15 will have this question and 13 will not have that question and another 25 might have that question. So you're not going to get very helpful information from the survey data, right? But we'll make everybody happy, right? Okay.
But it's for the LEA. The LEA can make that decision, not this, from what I understand, not this school or this what, first graders get this question, and then, I don't know. Does that make sense? It's not that. Maybe we need to take groups off. Maybe that's the confusing phase. Maybe it's the for student survey. Group sounds like it's, does that make
I
sense?
don't see groups in there at all.
I'm
May-
looking
may
for
not-
for student survey groups.
Oh, you want to add student survey groups.
I'm looking at it right here. The amendment says that in front of me.
I don't see that. Where do you have, on which line does it say groups? Paren 2?
It's right here in front of us.
Oh, for student survey groups, you're adding that too.
Yep.
So it's not on what we had in the backup, right? You're adding this now. Consistent with student, as described in, well, okay. That doesn't make any more sense to me, but okay. Let me leave that alone because it's nonsensical and we'll just end up having screwy data, and that's, I guess, what they want. So that's fine. But my other point is they only may remove.
Chair? Point of order,
Please.
if I can call that. If it's talking to this item, but it seems like some of the comments are going beyond that towards comments that are people making. So I'm just calling point of order. If it could stay to the items we're talking about, that would be appropriate. Thank you.
And my next comment is to the language in there says, in the LEA's climate survey, consistent with student privacy requirements. So that suggests that they can only be removed if they have to do with student data privacy. Is that what is intended? In addition to the screwy data.
Okay.
Is that to the maker of the motion? Is that what you intend, Member Earl?
You can read it and you guys can decide
But
what
is
you want to
that-
vote for it. I'm not actually responding, so.
Well, is that, maybe then I'll
Okay.
ask, can I ask Deputy Superintendent Newey if that would be a consistent interpretation? If one underneath little I says consistent with student data privacy requirements, then that would modify what could be removed. Is that what the intention is?
Elise, you have a response?
I think she's consulting.
Apologies. Thank you, Chair. So the intention is that, well, okay, so a little background. This was a required survey that everyone had to give. There has been changes to law in the last few years that make it optional. So we are kind of in an interesting place where we want consistent data. We want useful data that is collected. However, we also want to follow the law and we want to give LEAs and parents options, right? So that's kind of the background for this modification. In this spot, it says that an LEA can include an entire question or remove an entire question, just with the understanding that they still need to be following student data privacy laws. So that's not maybe the reason why they're including or taking it out, but if they add a question that is illegal, that would be a problem, right? So that is why.
That's the way you're reading it.
Yeah.
So I can see that too. So that's fine. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Member Bogus.
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to direct our attention to line number 33. We've pulled the language classified and we've inserted educational support or education support personnel.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can we cue that up? Because is that on this motion?
Oh, no, I
So we
should have
have an
told you that.
amendment.
I apologize.
Yeah,
I totally knew it was not to this motion. Yeah, let's
I
do it in
jumped
just
the
a minute.
gun. I'm sorry. So let's tackle this motion, and then we got you in the queue, Member Bogus. So the motion to amend is on line 63 to amend this as follows, where it would read in entirety, B, an LEA may, I, not modify an existing survey question, and double I, include or remove, that's the addition, or remove, additional questions in the LEA's climate survey. 1, consistent with student data privacy requirements as described in section 53E-9-203, and 2, this is also the addition for the amendment, for student survey groups. Let's vote on this, and then we'll go to Member Bogus. So let's vote. That passes 12 in favor, 3 in opposition. Those opposed being Member Booth, Member Reel, and Member Lear. Over to you, Member Bogus.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. As on line 33, we've changed the language from classified to education support personnel. And I work in a singular district, but in multiple buildings, and that terminology, education support personnel, means something different in each one of those. In some buildings, it includes our custodians, our secretaries, etc. But we don't define this here. What is our intent with this language? Because if we don't define it, I don't think it's going to play out in real time the way we think it will. Can you guys help me with that?
Can I get, Vice Chair Wood has pulled up the code here. Go ahead.
So, Senator Fillmore in SB 66 changed the word classified to school to education support professionals throughout all our code.
So should we reference that in here?
You could. I mean, that's why it's been changed, because classified is not in code anymore.
Okay, so then I would move to, in the appropriate spot, which would probably be line 23, to insert a definition linking the terminology education support personnel to the appropriate code line.
So we have a motion that we'll put before the board here. And once we see that on the screen, Member Bogus, will you just make sure that that's in line with what you are wanting?
Absolutely, Chair. Sorry, I was just waiting for the screen. I thought there's a little dead silence there. Yeah, insert line on 33 to reference Utah. I think it's 23. I mean, it would be in alphabetical order, so the E would come after. I think it would be on line 23. Yes, to insert a definition on line 23 to reference Utah code. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Whoever's running that, thank you.
Okay. Are we in good space for me to read this off?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the motion before the board is to insert a definition on line 23 to reference Utah code to education support personnel. And that code is 53G-11-519. Do we have a second? And do you want to speak to that motion? Okay. Member Lear.
On 33, you're still leaving line 33. You don't need both personnel and staff. Just because you're at it right now. So take out one of them.
Yeah, we're not adjusting line 33. I think what she's attempting to do is offer a definition for clarity.
But while you're doing that, get rid of personnel or staff.
You have an amendment to,
Yes. It's just a non-sub point.
yeah, go ahead. Well, yeah, amend it.
I would amend my own motion to delete the word on line 33.
So the motion, the amendment, or the amendment motion, sorry, is an insert a definition on line 23 to reference Utah code to education support personnel. And the code is 53G-11-519. And delete the word staff on line 33. Do we still have a second? We still have a second. Is there opposition to this? Seeing none.
Is that the right code? I just brought it up as Utah Recognizing Inspiring School Employees Award. No. 53G-11-519.
Elise, go ahead.
That is the only place where it is defined in code, is in that Utah Recognizing Inspiring School Employees Award section of code. That's why it's referenced there, but we can change it.
Member Bogus, what would you like to do here?
Even if we're not super comfortable, I think whatever the definition is in code, if that's what we're trying to bring forward in this rule, I think it needs to be brought out in the definitions. It stands in line with everything else here that says this as defined by this as defined by, I mean, every one of them is linked to a code. And so if we're going to use this language, I do think we need to link it to the code line that it's referenced to.
Okay, I'm going to speak briefly against this. It's nothing. I hear what you're saying, but I'm just seeing that now the code just loops back to. Anyway, let's tee this up here. Member Bogus has made a motion to insert a definition on line 23 to reference Utah Code to Education Support Personnel 53G-11-519 and delete the word staff on line 33. Let's vote. That passes. 9 in favor, 6 in opposition. Those opposed being Member Booth, Member Earl, Member Kelly, Member Hymas, Member Wood, and Member Bollinger. Okay. Help me find, help me relocate. Where are we? I think we're on the motion as amended. Is that right? Okay. The motion then is that the board approve R277-623 School Climate Survey Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
I am curious as to why we're CVing code in 17, line 17, and line 20, and line 23, but then in the other spaces, we're saying like a term as defined in. Is there a reason we're using an inconsistent format, or is that just what this committee decided to do? That's my first question, and then I have a second one.
Let me ask this question. When it says as defined in, are you talking about within the definitions? Because I'm recognizing the pattern of in the definition, it says as described in, and then it gives the section of code.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and later on, it'll say, like E, school resource officer as defined in subsection 53G-8-701, subsection 2, but it doesn't define it the way we're looking at all these other definitions. It's just an inconsistent format, and we've had this debate in here over and over to not CV code.
And my argument would be, if you and I are arguing.
We're not arguing yet, sir.
That we can't, I wouldn't want to put every definition in the definition section, so I can see why, I don't know how they choose, but I can see why the difference is. That's just me. But anyway, I'll let you continue.
I don't know, I would like to say we do it climate as defined in 53G, culture as defined in 53G. These things get so verbose and so wordy. If the will of the body would accept that, I'd make that motion. But between now and then, I would like to draw our attention to line 58. Between now and the time we decide whether or not there's a will to truncate the definitions. On line 58, we have a percentage here at 35%. And it says, or 400 responses per survey group. Well, in some of our small LEAs, they literally have 11 teachers in the high school. Are we really going to adjudicate the climate of a school when 3 out of 11 people responding?
Yes. According to this.
Well, I would offer that most of the people who fill out surveys are people who are frustrated, especially when it comes to staff. But I would be hard pressed to say we should be adjudicating the culture and climate of our institutions and LEAs with small N sizes with this metric.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's a solution, but I'm just, did the committee discuss small N sizes at all? Was that? Yeah. I did, but I was not satisfied with the discussion. So maybe help me out with what we're going to do in places with 11 teachers.
Okay, I've got.
It was trying to set a base, at least a base of some kind. If this body wants a different percent, this body can make a different percent. Only 30% of our schools have even administered this last year. It's not required. There's a lot of question whether it's even necessary. So, but at the same time, if people are administering it, there should be at least a base or a minimum. And if 35%, that can be whatever this body chooses it to be. So.
Can you come back to me? I know there's other people in the queue.
Yep.
Just come back to me, please.
Member Longacre.
I have a question, and I'm alive over here, I promise. I just want to address line 51. It says, with parental consent, how can a parent consent if they don't see the survey? They don't know what they're consenting to. So is there any way that we can give parents access to this survey so it is a full consent?
Member Earl, Chair Earl.
Yeah, I could probably address that. It's required now in law that at the beginning of the year that any service that they administer they have to give consent then, and they can access the survey itself. So if they're choosing to give this survey at the first of the school year, they would need to have that information accessible to parents so they can get that.
Member follow-up, Member Longacre.
So does that mean by law, if a parent goes into the school and says, you're administering this survey, whether it's the climate survey or any other survey, that the school is required to give them that test?
Yes. Yes.
Is that upon request? Is that right?
No, it's they can go in upon request, but they're
Right.
supposed to have it accessible for parents when they sign. So I'll see if I can find the.
Member Brenton.
Well, it's also law too that they cannot give a survey unless a parent has consented to it. They are opt-in now, not just opt-out.
Well, let me.
Oh yeah.
Member Longacre, has that answered your question? We will give you answers until.
So just, there is law. So if a parent goes in and a school might say, sorry, we can't give that to you because then it might be biased or something, they can say, well, according to this code, this law, you need to give me this survey.
And it's referenced there, 53E9203, and specifically it says written parental consent is valid only if the parent has been first given written notice, including notice of the copy of the educational or student survey questions to be asked of the student in obtaining the desired information. So I won't read all of it, but you can get additional information. That code covers that there. Does that work?
Okay. Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-623 School Climate Survey Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Chair, I would move to amend line 58 to 51%.
Okay, the motion then is to amend line 58 to change 35% to 51%. Is there a second? Okay, Member Bogus?
Well, I guess I would just offer that this as an overarching issue deals with our small N sizes, but including our larger LEAs. An institution sometimes has 30 teachers in a building, and 30% is 10. So we're at least reaching 50% plus 1 before we start determining the culture and climate of these buildings and go into accountability measures. So I think it's a good number because we have 50% plus 1. And there you go. I don't know if that helps you, sir.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. From my understanding in researcher surveys, that 35% threshold is actually a good response rate to basically show trends. But I'd be curious to know if anybody from our data and statistics staff members can speak to that. Yeah.
Yes, please. Go
Hi,
ahead.
I'm
Yeah.
Dr. Willie Chen, and as Board Bollinger said, the 30% to 40% threshold is the general practice. Really, if you look at the literature, depending on how you design your survey and build it out, you can really set, there's varying opinions on the threshold, but the 30 to 40% is general practice. And so, you know, if you change it to 51%, what are some potential consequences? It might make a larger burden for larger schools. So if you administer the survey during the spring, for example, you have students, maybe a lot of them are missing due to a track meet or something, it might make it more difficult for those larger LAs to meet that 51% threshold. But the 35% is within general practice.
I thank you. First off, this is a survey. I don't know if maybe I'm misunderstanding this. It's a survey that's optional. We can modify the survey. If I hit 20% versus 50% versus 100%, does it matter? Does it change anything? When we say adjudicate, what does that mean to me as a school? I mean, you're not going to come after me for anything. How dare you not hit 35? You know what I mean? Like, even if they have the 3 responses out of 11, that's information for the school
So
and
when
then passed to the state.
Sorry, I
Go ahead.
apologize. When it went red, I started talking.
You're
So
good.
my concern is whether it be our passive adjudication or public adjudication. So for example, 35% of, even let's say a staff of 35% of the people fill out the survey, and then we publish this information and it says, 100% of the people here think this is a really terrible place to be. And that's not a fair representation of especially small LEAs. Like if you're in a larger LEA where you have, you've got staff filling it out and you've got 150 people filling out that survey, is it fair and sporting? I would argue no, but it is more representative of a larger population as opposed to our small LEAs, in particular our charter schools and our nest schools where those N sizes are so low, and that 35% becomes 100% when you start public facing that data.
Member Green.
Well, and you said it, like, what are we adjudicating? What do we do with that data? It obviously drives action, I would say. I mean, it drives direction. Line 26, where it says school climate survey or climate survey, means a survey that evaluates a range of aspects of the educational environment to assess perceptions and identify specific strengths and weaknesses within a school. So I would assume that like, where does that go after? Where does this data go? You know, where do these survey percentages go after that? Is it at a state level? Is it a local level? And I am asking if anybody wants to answer that.
Please. Yes.
Excuse me, can you, okay. Code 53G8802 describes what happens to the data afterwards. I'm gonna start talking a little bit technical now. The data is going to be in two places, which is why this board rule is a bit complicated. The way we have the Qualtrics contract set up, because the survey is currently administered through Qualtrics, LEAs own the data. So they own the data. But in that 53G-8-802, USB is required to collect and aggregate that data. And so once all the technical pieces are set up through APIs and et cetera, we also will receive that data. And so regardless of whatever percentage y'all as a board decide, if and when we report it out, we would put, the necessary qualifiers. According to 30% of the state that responded to this survey, this many people reported, or this percentage reported. So there are those qualifiers to let people know not 100% took it. And also in the end, you can set whatever threshold you want, but statute also in that 53G-802 also says no one is compelled to answer any question. So also in the words of Board Member Leary, we're probably gonna get some not the best data, right? But we're trying to just put as general best guidelines as we can so that if we do need to put that more detailed report, we can report with as best as we can.
Thank you. So you got a comment? Go ahead.
We can vote on this, but I would have a motion to postpone this to unfinished business because I would like to develop language to fix that line. And I don't want to do it on the fly.
So we have a motion to amend that's before the body, and then, but you want to make a substitute motion. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I would like to substitute lines 58 and 59, but I would rather postpone this item.
Yeah, so your substitute motion is to postpone.
I cannot substitute an amendment, sir.
Perfect. So let's deal with the amendment then.
Yeah.
So the amendment that's proposed here in the motion before the board is to amend the percentage on line 58 from 35% to 51%. Remember? Okay, let's vote. Oh. This is on the motion? Yeah. So are we ready to vote? We are voting. Let's go. That motion fails, 13 against, 2 in favor. Those in favor being Member Bogus and Member Green. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. I move to postpone action on R277623 to unfinished business tomorrow so that we can,
So
and then I'll speak to it in just a minute.
Yeah, there's a motion to postpone this agenda item to tomorrow's unfinished business. And this is agenda item 8.7. We've got a second. Member Bogus, go ahead and speak to that.
I think we need to really consider what this looks like for our small LEAs. And I have some language in my head, and I'd just love to have overnight to work on it so that we're not hashing it out during the time we have here today.
Okay, so the motion before the board is to postpone agenda item 8.7 to tomorrow's unfinished business. Let's vote. So that motion fails. 9 in opposition, 6 in favor of postponing. Those in favor being Member Hall, Member Carey, Member Longacre, Member Brenton, Member Green, and Member Bogus. Member Longacre.
Sorry. I do have a question about the survey. What information do we get?
And how much does it cost? Is this cost effective to have this survey be administered? Oh, sorry. Chairman.
Yeah,
I missed.
yeah. I'm guessing that's a staff-directed question. Let's just give them a second to figure out who's gonna, if they have a response right now. Chantel, thank you.
Hello, Chantel Cota, Director of School Safety and Student Services, Chair, if I may. Great question. Thank you so much. So it does not cost the school there is no monetary or fiscal note associated with this. They can access the survey through Qualtrics, which all schools have their account, and then we have a master account here. This was put into place due to some legislation some years ago that required it, and now we're in a space of deciding how you all as board members would like to proceed forward. But in terms of your question, there isn't a cost to the schools.
Okay, follow up? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, another question, Chairman. Is this, how do I word this? Taking time out of school for, reading, writing, arithmetic, is this necessary, or the information that you get, is it worth stopping, like their day, time in their day?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's something for you all to decide. What I can offer as a talking point is in House Bill 40, school safety is defined as physical, culture, and climate. So if you all as board members see it as a value add to receive more data on that across the state, then certainly that could be, but it's to your discretion as the board.
Thank you. Additional questions? Your light is still on? Okay, hit that button then so you don't have the hot mic. There you go. Member Carey.
Yeah, Chair, just to follow up, because my focus has been on the SHARP survey, and that's where I've spent my time, so I'm not as familiar with the climate survey. But just in terms of, is this administered in during regular school hours? And if so, is it a few hours? Is it multiple days? If I could just have answers to that, because I don't know. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Although Vice Chair Bollinger gave me the answer. She shook her head no to all my questions,
Okay.
but we'll get it official.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So again, when this survey was statutorily required, it was going to be administered every other year opposite the Teacher Exit and Engagement Survey. That's R277325. But now that House Bill 182 from 2024, that I believe Representative Lisenby helped sponsored, now that has passed, it is no longer required. So we are staff is recommending language be amended so that if an LEA does choose to administer this survey, they can administer it whenever they want to, and schedule it within their school schedule or whatever. So that's least disruptive, because it will take time to administer a survey. And we provide during the training, we provide general recommendation like, here's some best practices, but it's really up to the LEA and the school how they decide to administer the survey. We just provide the survey itself.
And Chair, if I may, so is it a hour survey? Is it 2-hour survey? Is it one full school day survey?
Testing. Okay. Again, it depends. The K through 2 survey is 10 questions, but those are younger groups. And we have our older groups, the 6 through 12. That's about 40, 50 questions, maybe a little more. On average, I believe the last report we had, it was about 30, 40 minutes on average for all groups. Obviously, some groups may have taken a little less or a little more, but that was the average time. So it's not supposed to be like a RISE test or anything like that.
And Chair, if I might, just one more question. Thank you. I know on the SHARP survey, they have, I think it's just slightly over 50% participation rate, and it might actually be lower than 50%. That's my understanding. Do we have those figures for the opt-in for this survey?
This past year, 30% of the LEAs opted in to take the school climate survey, but because, again, it's optional, some of them only administer the adults, some of them only administer the 6 through 12, but we did have 30% opt-in. Again, whether they followed through, that's another question or another situation.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Earl.
Yeah, so this has actually been in committee for a couple months. We began the discussion back in December, and I think there's this uncertainty, right? This kind of, and I've asked myself, why are we doing this over and over again? But we're required to have the survey. We're required to do something with the results as a board. The LEA can choose what they're going to do, and a parent or an individual can choose. But we do have to have something in place. And so this is trying to address that something until we're not required to do the something anymore. But everyone else can decide whether or not they engage. We don't need it necessarily. It's not mandated for the school safety center. They gather their data and their assessments in other ways. So, I mean, I personally, I've struggled with this. I'm like, I don't even want this rule, right? Like, or the survey, but we're mandated to do it by law. So then it's this, and I'm just sharing this is my internal tension, whether you want to hear it or not here. But so that's what the intent was, is to try to narrow that down as much as possible, to try to get it as clean as possible for those that choose to use it, because we have to do something. And if we don't have something, then there, it's whatever. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I personally don't care for it. I don't think it's necessary, but we have an obligation legally to at least have some things in place. So.
Member Lear.
Law that our specialists so helpfully provided. And it says that the school safety center shall, and then P is collect aggregate data and school climate survey results from an LEA that administers the model school climate survey. Apparently we have Lisenby's bill that I can't remember from last year or the year before that said they're all optional anyway. But we do have this saying the school safety center shall do this. And then it also says, as we keep going, parentheses 4, the state board shall require an LEA to, if an LEA administers a school climate survey, review the school climate survey. And so the LEA is required to do that. And I don't see, and report back to the state board, but I don't see anything the state board has to do within this at all. All we have to do is provide it, I guess, as we're part of the school safety center, or I'm not sure why the board is doing it when it says the school safety center shall. And then, and so we do have to do that, but it doesn't say we have to do anything with it. We don't have to look at it. We don't have to aggregate it. We don't have to even keep a list. And now, unless if I'm missing a piece that says, oh yes, that's wrong. But as I read it, shall require an LEA to, if an LEA administers a school climate survey. Just tell me if I'm wrong or what I'm missing.
Is there a question in there?
Yes, tell me what I'm wrong or if I'm missing something to say there is something for the state board to do.
Okay.
The School Safety Center, from my understanding, is under USBE. There are some liaisons, but in that 53G 8802, Section 2, Section P says collect aggregate data and school climate survey results. So that's where the USB still has to do something
So we
with
just
it.
collect it, but doesn't say provide policies in response to it or anything. We just collect it. Collect aggregate data and school climate survey results that administers the model, and that's just from those who choose to do it. And then it says the state board shall require an LEA to, under parentheses 4 below. So we've got the data, it's sitting there, but we don't have to act on it, as I read that. So maybe somebody needs to work with the legislature to either tell us to do something with this time spent in classrooms, or so am I missing something? Am I missing something else, Chantel?
Please, yeah.
Chantel Cota, Director of School Safety and Student Services. Thank you for those questions. So because of the recent legislation, it did get very gray, as some of you as board members have alluded to in your questions and comments. I think the thing to kind of bring us back around to is that law does say that we should, or shall rather, collect and aggregate the data, and then it turns it over to LEAs to create policies on bullying, hazing, and a few other topics. So The ways in which LEAs have been using the statewide data is to look at statewide data in comparison to their own local data to make decisions about policies. So that is very different than, say, the Utah State Board of Education making policies, but that is one way the LEAs have been using it to inform. And so as we're thinking through, and as we as staff are offering you any talking points, one of the things that the School Safety Center has talked about is what is the need of course, statewide data. If we are collecting statewide data, how could it be discussed as a data point to inform conversation or to support LEAs in their policies? So to be really clear, Member Lair, you are correct that the state board is not required to do anything with that data. It really, in the past, has been stored on Utah Data Gateway for LEAs to refer to and make policies around.
It is sitting there, and LEAs may access that data, which brings up another question about LEAs looking at other LEAs data, which maybe makes me a little nervous in small LEAs, but they can't do that. They can only look at their own data? Okay.
Yes, and statewide data, but not other districts' data, no.
An LEA, okay, state board shall require an LEA to, if they administer one, so maybe only the ones who administer one, review school climate data for each school within the LEA. And okay, and so they can look at their own data and decide what they think about it is the only thing that this helps, or the only purpose of this.
Chair, if I may.
Not the only,
respond.
I think it's a valuable purpose myself, but.
To clarify, so districts, charters, LEAs can look at their own data through their own Qualtrics. The statewide Utah Data Gateway provides statewide aggregate data as maybe a comparative tool.
That's
but
what I was
they
getting.
can't access, so one District A could not access the data of District B, for example. They can just look at statewide data.
Statewide aggregate to compare their own situation.
Yes.
That's helpful.
Thank you. Member Carey.
Yeah, just to confirm, because I just want to make sure I understood this, only 30% of our LEAs are participating in the last climate survey that was administered?
Yes, that's correct. 30% opted in.
From that 30%, do we have any indication of the percentage of students who actually participated? Like I know at the SHARP survey, if you sign your name or write your name in at the top, they count that as participation. Well, they didn't answer any questions, but, well, they participated. So do we know what level of engagement that we're having with those students in those schools? You don't have to provide, if you do, I just ask that you provide it to the board. I'd be interested in seeing that. And
We do have the information internally on the participation rates. We used to have a public dashboard for that comparative tool. And so we would be happy to share that if you wanted a deeper look into response rates.
because my concern is that, if we're saying this is the climate of our schools and only 30% are participating and even a lower number of students are actually engaged, is it really painting an accurate picture of the climate of public schools in the state of Utah? Because I don't know if they're rural, if they're urban, if, predominantly white or non-white. And so, and I know that's all controlled, Director Code. I know you're very thorough with that, but that's what I think, that's what I'm hoping the data will show me. So if you could provide that, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The motion before the board, Vice Chair Wood, go ahead.
I have a question for Director Coda, if I may, Chair. So does not the safety bill require some dashboard of comparison that we're supposed to be creating? Can you help me understand what we're collecting there that will be statewide, that will be drillable down compared to this climate survey, and how are they different? And just help me understand better.
for that question. So that is a different dashboard. The dashboard I think that you are referring to is the school safety dashboard, and that dashboard will be include data from the school disciplinary and law enforcement action report. So that is different data, and that includes more disciplinary data. There will be an opportunity to maybe include student-teacher ratios, school nurse ratios, data of that nature, of course, dependent on what you all as board members decide how you want to go on that. But the law states that it will include the information that is currently available in our school disciplinary and law enforcement action report. I'm happy to send that link out to any of you that would like to review that. It is a public-facing report with public-facing data. Currently, it's just that it's in a PDF, and the goal is, the goal because of the request from the legislator is to put that onto a school safety dashboard. So while there could be inferences made about the culture and climate, it's not directly related to the school climate survey that we're discussing here and now. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to see what the difference was. So basically, that will just be what has already happened in our schools, where our school climate might infer what the atmosphere is, the climate, the way people feel. So it's more a feeling-based thing. Your safety will be what has happened, what any negative or instances that have happened in our schools.
You are correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay. So let's go back to the motion then. The motion is that the board approve R277-623 School Climate Survey Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Seeing no additional lights, let's vote. Okay, that passes. 9 in favor, 6 in opposition. Those opposed being Member Carey, Member Longacre, Member Earl, Member Green, Member Bogus, and Member Brenton. With that, before I turn that back over to you, Chair Earl, let's break for lunch. Okay, it looks like we don't have a choice. We are breaking for lunch. Thank you.
And if you've got a race car, come downstairs. Even if you don't, come down and watch. So.
Board members, welcome back from an exciting lunch. Sorry to say that after that race, the divide between staff and board members just grew. So there's some, yeah.
His job is the same.
Yeah, that's right. Milo has some, he has some competition coming. So we might have to do that again, and I'll find a way to cheat. So with that, let's go ahead and jump back in. If you recall, we just wrapped up agenda item 8.7, which is our Standards and Assessment Committee report. When you're ready, Chair Earl, go ahead, and we are looking at agenda item 8.8.
Okay. All right, the motion for the board, and I do have to, she's not even here. but Board Member Real provided a lot of great feedback on this one, and so we were able to kind of narrow some things in a good way. But the motion before the board is that the board approve R277921 incorporated document, College and Career Readiness Certificate Program Standards, Draft 2 on second and final reading. And I think I would make the, maybe, I'm just wondering if we do the same thing we did with the other incorporated documents, make sure we have the date and, you know what I mean? I don't know if we need to do that, a formal amendment or...
I think we did one formal, and then the second time we said, look, staff, we're all on board, let's make the corrections.
Yeah.
So let's do that with this one as well.
Okay.
So the motion before the board then is that the board approve R277-921 incorporated document, College and Career Readiness Certificate Program Standards, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes 12 in favor, 1 in opposition, and 2 absent. The 1 in opposition coming from Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Earl.
The motion, 8.9, sorry, I think I skipped a page here. The motion for the board is to approve and continue R277921 Strengthening College and Career Readiness Program, Draft 2 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board approve and continue R277-921, Strengthening College and Career Readiness Program, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Let's vote.
And I did ask that that be included, so yeah, that's okay.
Okay, that passes 12 in favor, 1 in opposition, 2 absent. The 1 in opposition coming from Member Bogus. Chair Earl.
Yeah. The next one is that the board approve the waiver to engage in a targeted standards review process for health standards. And I actually want to, a question for the board maybe. Go ahead and...
Let's read it out of committee,
Yep.
and then we'll open it up here. The motion for the board is that the board approve the waiver to engage in a targeted standards review process for health standards. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Yeah, I actually would recommend it's not specific for health standards, that it's just a targeted standard review process. And we could add at the end of it for legal requirements or based on code or something, because, and I'll explain just a little bit, the reason why we're doing this is because there's provisions in our health standards that don't align with code anymore. And so instead of going through the whole process of the 2 years of writing for a couple of provisions in the health standards, we're asking for, that's what this is, it's a condensed process, but it still goes through a public review, it allows for comment, it allows for feedback, and then it aligns with code. So the thing that would initiate it would be a code change, very specific code change that would allow that to take place, because if we don't make changes, then we're out of compliance with law. And to go through the whole process takes, you know, especially when it's our core standards, it takes a significant amount of time. I guess my question for the board is, do we want to keep it narrowed to just this item, or is it or do we want a process in place if code changes that we would need to align with our standards in some way? So I'm just kind of throwing that out there for discussion.
As we think over that, Elise has a comment.
Yeah.
Just to add on to that, Board Member Earl, the next item, 8.11, would rewrite the policy to allow for that shortened standards review process.
Okay.
So 8.10 will
Maybe
do
I'm
this
getting ahead of
particular
myself here.
instance.
I guess that I'm looking back at it, so
So am I hearing?
Okay, so what we're saying is that the 8.11, 8.11 would actually comply with that. This one's, okay, sorry. Never mind, pretend like I didn't say that.
Okay, so the
So-
motion before the board then is that the board approve the waiver to engage in a targeted standards review process for health standards. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes unanimously with 2 absent. Thank you, Chair Earl.
Okay, and then, thank you for the reminder. Sorry, I guess I had it in my mind and then I wasn't connecting it, so I apologize. So the next 8.811 is the board approved Board Policy 3002 Core Standards Review Process, Draft 2, which includes a targeted standards review process. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board approve Board Policy 3002 Core Standards Revision Process, Draft 2, which includes a targeted standards review process. Let's vote.
Approve the stuff.
That passes unanimously with 2 absent. Back to Chair Earl.
Yes, so the next piece, just so you're aware, when we get recommendations from one of our advisory committees, we accept the recommendations and then we can act on those. And so there's kind of a mix in here, but just letting you know, so normally we would accept the recommendations, the work they've done, but then from there, then we can decide if there's something more we want to do. So there's we receive, that's the right word. So the motion for the board is that the board, I have accept, accept the USEEP recommendation memo titled Disability Awareness Toolkit, and USEEP stands for the Utah Special Education Advisory Panel, who is our panel. So just a little bit of information for the public or anyone that's listening here. Okay, so that's what the recommendation is. That's the first motion.
There's 2 motions. Let's take care of the first one. We're taking care of these separately. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the first motion for agenda item 8.12 is that the board accept the USEEP recommendation memo titled Disability Awareness Toolkit. Let's go ahead and vote. That passes with 2 unanimously with 2 absent. And I don't know if I stated that member Lear and member Green are absent for the time being. So
Okay.
those are the absents when we call those out. Thank
Okay.
you, Chair Earl.
The next one is, and this is a recommendation based on the recommendation we received. So it's the board approved the staff recommendations for capacity to implement the Disability Awareness Toolkit memo recommendations.
Okay, the motion before the board then is that the board approve the staff recommendations for capacity to implement the Disability Awareness Toolkit memo recommendations.
Okay, and I can speak just a little bit to that. If you listen to the committee, it was just saying, what capacity do we have to do this? And it's asking the question, and what resources do we have already? Trying to create, making sure we don't duplicate things that are out there. So we're just asking them to kind of see what capacity we have to actually engage in this, and then to bring that to us so we can, expand on that. So,
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Thank you, Chair. So my question through the chair is, are we reinventing the wheel? Because I look at this and I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but it just seems like we're often duplicative in our efforts when we could go to the market at large and not only get a perhaps a better product, but a product that would not cause our staff to be engaged in long-term endeavors.
I can speak a little bit to that. I think the intent isn't to, I think that it is literally just that. It's what resources are already out there. We have a number of entities in the state that already engage with families and parents and such in this area, and make sure we're kind of condensing it and making it very usable. So I don't know if that speaks to that, what you were asking or not, but.
So Maybe I misunderstand from what I'm reading here. Maybe I have the wrong. So I have a memorandum. It starts with to Leah Voorhees from UC. And then it says to approve to the memo 1 and 2. So I'm looking at this memo and it's got a lot of information in it, but it's really duplicative of information that's already out there. Are we approving? I get, maybe I have the wrong thing up, Jenny.
Maybe. I don't know for sure. I don't think so. It sounds like it's the recommendations for what capacity we have to implement the disabilities awareness toolkit. So it would be looking at what resources we have out there and then putting those in a usable format, either in a condensed version or something.
Oh, so maybe I misunderstand. Chair, may I? So when you say resources, you're talking product. You're not talking money and staff.
I think it's both. It's making sure we're not, do you know what I mean? If what it's going to take to do this, if this is going to be a big project, or if it's just I think it could be how much time it would take to do this, and then we would decide whether or not that's something we want to engage in if it's going to be extensive.
Okay.
So right now it's just it's more of an information gather. At least that's the way I understood it. Maybe other board members understood it differently. That's how I understood it. So.
Okay, thank you. So the motion then restated is that the board approve the staff recommendations for capacity to implement the Disability Awareness Toolkit memo recommendations. Let's vote.
I'm sorry, that's not what's in here. Well, I don't know if you missed something. It's just not what is in the summary of actions. The summary of actions.
But that memo right there is what they're talking about. That's the memo that gives the recommendations that we're trying to approve. It gives recommendations of what our capacity is.
Let me look, see if it was accurately represented,
Well,
Christina.
and I do understand that, but the motion that came out of committee is that we are to approve the capacity to implement the parent empowerment memo.
No, that's a different one. There's a couple of recommendations.
Oh, well, there would be the confusion. I apologize for that. I
No, it's
don't
all
mean
right.
to derail. I apologize.
No worries, voting is open. Thank you. That passes unanimously with one absent. Welcome back, Member Green. Sorry, Member Lears is the absent one. Chair Earl, please.
Yes, so this is also a recommendation. So it's the board accept the USEEP recommendation memo titled Parent Empowerment.
Okay, the board, or the motion before the board is that the board accept the USEEP recommendation memo titled Parent Empowerment. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes 13 in favor, one absent, one no vote. That no vote coming from Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Yeah, so this would be the recommendation that was made from the committee, that the board approve the staff recommendations for capacity to implement the Parent Empowerment Memo Recommendation 1 and 2.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve the staff recommendations for capacity to implement the Parent Empowerment Memo Recommendations 1 and 2. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That passes unanimously. Chair Earl?
Yes, help me if I'm wrong on this, if someone's following along. So the last motion I have is in this section. Sorry. Would be at the very end. It's a motion for the board. It's information. That's it, right? In that one? Okay.
For this meeting, yes,
Yep.
for the public's awareness and a reminder to the board, the Standards and Assessment Committee held another meeting on June 24th. So this, Chair Earl, if I'm correct, wraps up your report from our June something meeting, June 6th, June. June 6th meeting. So Chair Earl, if you'll continue on to the next agenda item 9.
Okay. So just in the first item on our agenda was the child sex abuse and human trafficking instructional materials approval. And just a reminder, just kind of give some background information, there's parent training information, there's student training information, and then our student curriculum information, and then there's the trainer, which is the educators. Okay, so there's 3 components on these. There was extensive, quite a bit of people, quite a few individuals submitted. Some got approved, some of them didn't, to make it through just our rubric that made it to the committee, and then from there, that's where we went forward. I'm going to make a motion that has the 11 items on here. If anybody wants to pull one of those off, they can do that. I'm just going to do it as a larger motion instead of like a whole bunch of mini motions. So I'll go ahead and read that out. So the motion for the board, that the board approve material ID 19792, enough, prevention child sexual abuse in my school, enough abuse for adult serving youth. 2, the board approve material ID 20135, awareness and prevention of sexual abuse, SAPREA, for parent and guardian. 3, the board approve material ID 20335, Davis School District CSA and HT, which is child sex abuse and human trafficking. That's what those initials are. Prevention adult serving for adult serving youth. 4, the board approved material ID 20508 and 20510, child abuse ASY and human trafficking prevention vector solutions for adult serving youth. 5, the board approved material ID 20517, Lawrence Kids Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Prevention K6 Child Education Lawrence Kids for K3 and 5 through 6 grades only. The board approved material ID 20526 and 20527, Child Help, Speak Up, Be Safe Child Abuse Prevention Curriculum, Child Help for Elementary Students and Adult Serving Youth. The board approved material ID 20529 and 20530, Human Trafficking Prevention, Asian Association of Utah for Adult Serving Youth and Parent Guardian. And 8, the board approved material ID 20505 and 20538, Child Sexual Abuse, CSA, and Human Trafficking, HT Prevention, Family Support Centers of Utah, and Family Haven, Play It Safe, Aiden's Discovery, 6th, for elementary students. 9, the board approved material ID 20539, 3SGF, Protect Utah Adult Serving Youth, 3SGF for Adult Serving Youth. 10, the board approved material ID 20540, 3SGF, Protect Utah Elementary Student Prevention Education K through 3, 3SGF for elementary students. And 11, the board approved material ID 2-540541. Is that number, can someone make sure that number's right? We're not missing something. 3SGF, it's probably a 0. Am I?
20541.
Probably 20541. 3SGF, Protect Utah Elementary Student Prevention Education, 4 through 6, 3SGF for elementary students.
Thank you, Member Earl. The motion has been stated. Is there any discussion to this?
I just want to, it's interesting over the last few years, I've kind of changed my perspective on this a little bit. One of the fastest growing crimes in our nation is human trafficking, sexual abuse situations, and we're seeing this on the rise. The key thing for me when I went through these curriculums and went through these items was, first of all, protect the innocence of children, but yet empower them to be able to get help if they need it. It was put the adults back in charge and having them be responsible for the protection of children. And and I think this is kind of an all hands on deck. I'm not a fan of bringing in things that actually expose children to more sexual content or stories or whatever. And so the entities that put their curriculum together, I think did an extremely good job. They were very thoughtful. They aligned with Utah law. They aligned with the provisions that we have that protect children and also help to, I guess, empower or just let adults know, look, we're not doing this in our society. This is the boundary, this is the line, and we will be protecting children. And this is what it looks like. And you will, if you're doing these behaviors, we will be, either prosecuting you or turning you in. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone into this. There's been a lot of thoughtful work. So anyways, that's my comments on that. So.
Member Brenton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to reiterate what she said. This has been a really educational and thoughtful process. And, at the beginning, we were when we were requesting changes in curriculum, when we saw some concerning things that we weren't sure about, at first we were kind of told, well, that's not what you do. You can't request changes. This is pass or, you're either approving or you're not. But we actually, from 2 or 3 of the different curriculum companies, they made the changes for us because they wanted their curriculum to be passed. And so I know we're mandated to provide this, and then the local school districts can look through and choose which ones they want to use that best serve them. So I think it landed in a really good place that I'm happy with.
Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up with what Board Member Britton said, are the districts allowed to add or detract from this curriculum after this board approves it? I'm getting shakes of the head, so they're not. Okay, thank you, Chair.
But I think the reason why we approve it is it has to be what's approved.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other lights. I'm going to restate this motion. And I don't want you to turn your light on after I do it. So please, if you have a comment, let's get them out. This is a long motion. I'm gonna restate the motion. There's an exclamation point in here. Do you want me to emphasize that word? Okay, I will, just so we know. Okay. The motion before the board then is that the board approves material ID 19792 enough prevention child sexual abuse in my school, enough abuse for adult serving youth. 2, the board approves material ID 20135, awareness and prevention of sexual abuse, SAPREA for parent/guardian. 3, the board approves material ID 20335, Davis School District CSA and HT Prevention Adult Serving for adult serving youth. 4, the board approves material ID 20508 and 20510, Child Abuse ASY and Human Trafficking Prevention Vector Solutions for adult serving youth. 5, the board approves material ID 20517, Lawrence Kids Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Prevention K6, Child Education, Lawrence Kids for K through 3 and 5 through 6 grades only. 6, the board approves material ID 20526 and 20527, Child Help Speak Up, Be Safe, Child Abuse Prevention Curriculum, Child Help for Elementary Students and Adult Serving Youth. 7, the board approves material ID 20529 and 20530, Human Trafficking Prevention, Asian Association of Utah for Adult Serving Youth and Parent and Guardian. 8, the board approves material ID 20535 and 20538, Child Sexual Abuse, CSA, and Human Trafficking, HT, Prevention, Family Support Centers of Utah and Family Haven, Play It Safe, Aiden's Discovery 6th for elementary students. 9, the board approves material ID 20539, 3SGF, Protect Utah Adults Serving Youth, 3SGF for adults serving youth. 10, the board approves material ID 20540 3SGF, Protect Utah Elementary Student Prevention Education, K through 3, 3SGF for elementary students. 11, and do we have a number on this one? Do we have a clarifier? It's okay. The board approves material ID 20541 3SGF, Protect Utah Elementary Student Prevention Education 4 through 6, 3SGF for elementary students. Member Bogus.
Oh, no, I'm waiting until you're done.
Okay, I am done.
Oh.
We're ready to vote.
Should those say as amended because there were amendments in committee?
No, I think they already made those adjustments in committee. Am I correct on that one? Thank you, AG Beal.
Because we're not approving the entirety. Mike, I did try. We're approving them as they amended them, not in their entirety as they were presented. So I just want to make certain that what we're doing is the correct thing.
Chair Earl.
I think I can speak to that because there were a number of recommendations, and they're the ones that got sent out to you. And those would be what you would, if you went into the instructional materials under this item, it's reflective of those changes. So it reflects what's here under these numbers. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay.
They've updated those to reflect this. So if
Yeah.
you went to check it for this meeting, that's what it would be there.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Member Green.
I think that's a great point. We're sure because we were very specific with some very specific items that would make me vote no if, sure.
Who can confirm that the updated provisions that were sent out to us on Thursday are actually the ones that are in those documents?
Chair, if I may. Tanya Albornoz, Coordinator for Prevention. I think it would be safer to say as amended by committee, and that way we'll have our bases covered.
Okay. I'm not going to read all of these, but we're going to do it unless one of you want to, but the motion with these 11 items as amended. And so I appreciate the point, right? We didn't go through all this work just to say, yeah, we're good, and then move on. So I appreciate the points that are brought up here. So as amended, Member Earl, any other thought? Your light is on. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's put that together. I don't know what this is going to look like as far as voting. We are ready to vote. I just want to make sure. Sorry, we have a point of clarification just quickly. Go ahead, Member Green.
Does that, as amended, does that come from feedback that we emailed or that we communicated directly with the vendor? What does that look like when it lands? Just so we're clear on our end. Because there was a lot of conversation, like.
It should be what came out of committee. Chair Earl.
It was emailed out on Tuesday or Wednesday or something. That's what it would be, what was there. So I don't know if that answers.
Does that answer your question, Member Green? Or?
And that reflects what our meeting was on the 24th and the other areas. I know, if I may, Member Earl, you'd emailed some items that they had addressed, and those were addressed in this final draft. Because, yeah, there was a few different ways that we communicated with everybody that was involved. Anyway, I just want to make sure that's where we're at. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. We will unpause voting. It looks like it's open. That passes 13 in favor, 2 in opposition. Those in opposition coming from Member Longacre and Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Earl.
We have one last item, and it is the packets rule. Let me pull it up here.
9.4.
9.5? Is there a 9 point?
We have a 9.4. We just finished 9.3.
Oh, yeah, we've got to do the minimum guidelines. Sorry, yes, you're right. Sorry, there's just so many pages in here. I did not quite get there. Okay, so 9.4, let me find where we're at. The motion is that the board approve the minimum guidelines for child sex abuse and human trafficking prevention elementary students instructional materials document draft 2, and the board approve the minimum guidelines for child sex abuse and human trafficking prevention parents guardians instructional materials document draft 2, and the board approve the minimum guidelines for child sex abuse, sexual abuse, and human trafficking prevention adult serving youth instructional materials document draft 2.
Okay, so the motion, there are 3 motions here. Are we tackling these separate? Did they come out of committee separately, or is this one motion?
I just read them as one motion, but we can do it separately. So how do you want to?
Well, I just don't know what.
Now, do it as one motion, and people can pull it off if they want to.
What was it in committee, if I could ask?
I don't remember.
It came out separately in committee, but it does say in the summary of action, motion for the board and list them.
Yeah.
Okay.
In committee, they came out separately.
Well.
What would you like to do?
Well, I try to play it safe and do what committee.
We can do each
what
one.
came out of committee. So let's just do what we're taking Christina at her word here, which. Yeah, No, I'm not challenging it. I'm just telling you. Yeah. So let's just take them here one at a time. The motion then is that the board approve the minimum guidelines for child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention elementary students instructional materials document draft 2. Member Lear.
I just wondered, to my point earlier, are these guidelines? I started too soon, sorry. I'm just wondering, consistent with my point earlier, are these guidelines or are they requirements?
They are requirements, right? They are requirements.
'Cause
So,
if I were-
I think that's a fair question. We
If
may
I were
need to
reading
change
this
that.
as an LEA, I would say, hey, they're just guidelines. I can do whatever I want.
I think we could make an amendment for requirement. Is that what you're?
I'd rather leave it open so that LEAs could say, I'll choose my own. I'm just pointing out that is meeting the guidelines. It's not a requirement.
Perhaps better than requirements, we could use minimum standards.
We could do that.
I'm happy to move that.
Yeah, that would be great.
What do we have here? Member Bogus?
I would move that we change the word guidelines to standards in every motion that has been presented here.
I think that's.
Do we have a second? Okay, so the motion before the board then is to change in these 3 motions, the title of these motions, change the term guidelines to standards. Vice Chair Wood. I'm sorry, Member Bogus, do you want to speak to that? And then Vice Chair Wood.
Sorry. I just believe, Chair, that with Member Lear's words that guidelines or suggestions, requirements seems narrowing in scope when we say the word minimum. And so I just think guidelines strikes a nice balance, and it's language that we use systematically throughout our agency, so it's understood by public at large. Oh, standards, I apologize. Yes, thank you.
Just a question on that. Does that become confusing when we talk about our core standards, our standards for that are required for us to approve? Does that become confusing between Utah core standards and these other standards that are just, do you see any confusion there? Yeah, just.
Maybe you were asking staff. I don't think it's going to produce confusion because you're speaking about things in 2 different realms. One is the training of staff, and it's the minimum standards for staff training, and the other is core standards. So I don't believe there's going to be confusion because they're talked about in different boxes, if you will. But other people who are in that space as well are welcome to come in.
Okay, so the motion before the board then is Member Bogus's motion to amend, which states change the terms guidelines to standards in all three motions. Is there opposition to this? Okay, let's cue this up then. Sure. Let's cue this up for a vote, and when it's open, we'll throw it. There it is. It's open. That passes 9 in favor, 6 in opposition. Those in opposition being Member Reel, Member Green, Member Bollinger, Member Hymas, Member Wood, and Member Lear. So that brings us to our motion that will now read, the board approved the minimum guideline, or the board approved the minimum standards for child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention elementary students instructional materials document Draft 2. Let's vote. That passes 13 in favor, 2 in opposition, those coming from Member Bogus and Member Longacre. The next motion is that the board approve the minimum standards for child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention parents/guardians instructional materials document Draft 2. Let's vote. That passes 13 in favor, 2 in opposition. Those oppositions coming from Member Bogus and Member Longacre. The final motion of this agenda item is that the board approve the minimum standards for child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention adults serving youth instructional materials document Draft 2. Let's vote. That passes 13 in favor, 2 in opposition, those being Member Longacre and Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Okay, we're on the last item, right? Did I skip anything else? Okay, we're good. All right. This item is, where's the motion? The motion for the board is that the board approve R2 77-705 secondary school completion and diplomas Draft 2 on second and final reading. And I have an amendment when we're ready.
All right, I'll state this motion and come back to you. So the motion before the board is that the board approves R277-705 secondary school completion and diplomas Draft 2 on second and final reading. Back to you, Chair Earl.
And I would make a substitute motion that we approve Draft 3.
There is a substitute motion to approve Draft 3. Do we have a second? Second. There is a second. Back to you.
Yeah, let me. Yes. We were trying to find, this is probably where the standards argument comes in, right? This idea of standards meaning criteria for packets. And so trying to give some direction without leaning in too much, but also creating some pretty, or at least more strenuous or rigorous components to the packets. So met with staff, met with a couple of board members. This is the recommendation that I'm recommending. I think there is one amendment that board member Bollinger has in just a second, but I'll just tell you what it is real quick. I'll just read this. It's so the change is, and we put criteria instead of standards because there seemed to be confusion whether or not it was course standards or something else. So the packet adheres to the following criteria. It fully covers the course standards, that's 1. 2, it includes adequate opportunities for practice and application.
Jenny,
3,
what line are you looking at?
I'm looking at 141. My apologies. Or 139 through 144. 2, it includes adequate opportunities for practice and application. 3, it includes a variety of formative and summative assessments. And 4, it is consistent with Section 53E3501, which there's some provisions in there that it requires. And instead of writing it out from law, we just are referencing the law. And there's 2 places where we put that criteria. So that's in essence the change there.
Okay. So I've got Vice Chair Bollinger and then Member Bogus and then Member Lear.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make an amendment on lines 143 and 173, strike formative and summative. And I'll speak to that motion if I get a second.
So the amendment here is to strike on lines 143 and 173, strike formative and summative. Do we have a second? Okay. Go ahead, Member Bollinger, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. These terms, formative and summative assessments in practice, often mean that we're using these to drive our instruction. The nature of packets are that they are done mostly independently, and there's minimal or no direction or instruction from a teacher. And so I think it gets confusing when we have the words formative or summative when an LEA or even our own USBE is trying to approve these, because we would assume that if it had formative assessments, that then we would have to have some way that there would be some teacher interaction within that packet process. So I just think that taking those out provides a little bit more clarity to both to LEAs and to USBE. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Bogus, to the motion or in the queue? In the queue. Member Lear, to the motion or the queue?
No, not to the motion. In the queue.
Okay. So the motion then is to, on lines 143 and 173, remove the words formative and summative, or remove that term formative and summative. Let's go ahead and vote. Once that's up, this is a different motion, but let's get that motion ready. Yes, line 140. Yep, there it is. Sorry, I didn't have it in front of me. Let me just read it clearly from the screen. The motion is that the board amend R277-705 draft 3 on line 143 and 173 by striking formative and summative. And when the voting is open, we will, there it goes. Let's vote. There you go. That passes unanimously. Next, we have Member Bogus.
Thank you, Chair. So my question through you is, these assessments that we're speaking about, are they the same assessments that other students are taking that are getting credit for this course? Or are we creating a secondary assessment to include in the packet? And then I might have a follow-up.
Is that question directed towards anybody specifically?
It's directed through you, Chair. I don't know who to direct it to, because
Okay.
I don't fully understand the assessment and how it links back to the original course itself.
I do know that most packet providers, if you go outside of the LEA, has a test, an assessment attached to it to show your knowledge, and I would believe that if an LEA created a packet as well, that they would have something similar. But I'd be open to any
Well,
other
then I have a question based
feedback.
on your response.
Go ahead.
So is the LEA awarding credit or is the packet provider awarding credit?
If I'm correct, the packet provider awards the credit, not the LEA. So you wouldn't get, the LEA wouldn't say, yeah, this is ours. It belongs to the provider.
Okay, so we're talking like Utah Online Academy or, okay, that's that's all I need to know.
Member Lear?
That's all right. I'm looking at line 161, and it says the state, and it should say the board shall, just FYI, it's a non-sub change instead of the state board, but it should say the board shall, and then it goes on to say ensure, and this would be to the maker of this draft, ensure that the packets come to the state for review adhere to the following criteria. The packet fully covers blah, blah, blah. The packet contains blah, blah, blah. And to me, that reads that this would be a board agenda item because the board shall ensure. So I guess we'll spend half a day reading those. Is that what was intended? The board will literally review those packets, as opposed to the superintendent, whose then staff could review those packets.
Well, we already do instructional materials. This is the instructional material process. So the answer is yes, if you want to read all of that. But we already approved this will go through the same process as the instructional materials do. And you get those twice a year in the consent calendar. You can review those, review the comments to it. That's the same process.
So they'd only be, so nobody can submit packets except twice a year. They'll be approved twice a year. Otherwise, they can't come in.
Yeah, they'll go through the
miscellaneous.
instructional materials process. That's what
Okay.
the law requires. So you, in essence, we'll approve twice a year. They can submit, in order to go through that
So
process.
you do mean the board?
Yeah,
Right.
that's,
Okay.
yep, that's what
Then
it says
can
in
I
the law
ask
too.
that- I don't
Yeah.
think this requires an amendment, but could we change that to board instead of state board? Thank you.
Yeah,
That's all-
I
that's
think
my
that's just the state board, yeah.
I just checked with Elise,
Yeah.
and she said fine.
For the public, the definition of board, capital board, is this body. So thank you for that. Okay. So the motion then, let me go back to the original. The motion is that the board approves R277-705 secondary school completion and diplomas draft 3 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. Okay, this passes 12 in favor, 3 in opposition, those opposed being Member Lear, Member Hymas, and Member Bollinger. Back to you, Chair Earl. Chair Earl, Jenny, does that conclude your report?
We're done.
Okay.
Yep.